Massachusetts Personal Lines Exam Questions. What does Massachusetts automobile insurance policy cover? Medical payments, paying for injuries arising out of an auto event, regardless of fault, for an insurer. Insurer with an office out of state. A homeowner, at the time of loss, must be insured for at least % percent of replacement cost in order to collect the full replacement cost of a partial loss. 80%. Personal injury. May be added as an endorsement. How much notice is required for the cancellation policy of coverage under a dwelling policy? 10. Liberalization clause. Changes adopted by the insurer that broaden coverage automatically apply to the policy at no additional premium. Reciprocity of licensure. Permits non-resident licensure for all non-residents of the state whose home is in good standing, licensed as resident, submitted the proper request. Coinsurance clause purpose. Encourage the insured to insure the property closer to its value. Endorsement M0099S is a mandatory endorsement, adds $500 minimum collision deductible, causes the limits of insurance to comply with the minimum limits of any state in which the vehicle is being operated. The MA automobile insurance policy does not automatically provide coverage for non-owned trailers. Specific coverage. One location is insured for a specific amount of insurance on the structure and contents. Combined single. Is a single dollar limit of liability applying to the total of damages for bodily injury and property damage combined resulting from one accident or occurrence. How long do rating organizations' licenses remain in effect? 3 years. Domestic insurer. Insurer's home office is in this state. DP1 and DP2 policy forms. Loss or damage from falling objects is covered except for damage to awnings, fences, outdoor equipment, outdoor radio and TV antennas. Damage to the interior of the building is covered only if the exterior has been damaged first. Automatic increase in insurance endorsement is used to provide at the annual renewal date of the policy, an automatic increase in the coverage A and B limits of insurance to help offset inflation. Comprehensive automobile insurance covers property and liability, everything other than you crashing into someone. Auto policy, casualty. If you crash into someone, damage to others not covering your car. What is not considered a flood? Sewage backup. Coverage B, other structures. Protects other, unattached, dwellings on the property. Covers landscaping as well as buildings, but not the land. Does not cover other structures used for business purposes. Under the HO4 and HO6 homeowners policy forms, property is insured against broad form perils, provide the same level of coverage as coverage C in the HO2 and HO3. Retention. In casualty, liability, insurance, it is the portion of a claim not paid by insurance. Property insurance calls this a deductible. Homeowners insurance. For your own home you live in, equivalent to property/liability coverage. Substitute transportation will reimburse the insured for transportation expenses if the insured's auto is out of service due to collision damage and the auto is covered for collision. Any person who violates a cease and desist order of the Commissioner after it has become final must pay a fine to the state not to exceed $10,000 for each violation, which may be recovered in a civil action. Does the homeowner's policy cover a collapse caused by foundation cracks? No, the foundation cracks would take years to cause collapse, meaning there would have been plenty of time to fix them. Vicarious liability. Legal doctrine under which a party can be held liable for the wrongful actions of another party. Example, a 9-year-old damages the neighbor's window. The parents, insureds, will be held liable. Who is afforded coverage under the use of other autos, broad form endorsement. This endorsement provides coverage for the insured, spouse and residents of the household, provided they are named in the schedule in the endorsement and premium is paid for each. Severability of insurance. The insurance applies separately to each insured. This condition does not increase the insurer's liability for any one occurrence. DP1 Basic Form. Fire insurances plus a few mentioned perils. At the time of loss, the insured's claim settlement options include: pay the value of the lost or damaged property, pay the cost or repair/replacement, appraisal, earthquake damage. Damage by earthquake is specifically excluded from coverage in all homeowners forms. However, coverage may be purchased by endorsement, which property coverages would provide protection to contents damaged by fire. Coverage C. Personal property provides coverage for the contents of an insured dwelling. To legally transact insurance in this state, an insurer must obtain Certificate of Authority. Errors and omissions coverage is provided only in a professional liability policy. Which perils are covered by the HO2 and HO3? Sudden and accidental rupture of a heating system. WYO program, write your own. Made up of private insurers that write and service national flood insurance policies on a no-risk-bearing basis through a special arrangement with the Federal Insurance Administration. Absolute liability example. Owning wild animals. Any conduct that is inherently dangerous, such as using explosives or keeping wild animals, imposes absolute liability. Farm property is specifically excluded under the liability section of a HO policy. Dwelling policies. Three forms: DP1, DP2, DP3. Auto liability policy limits explained. First limit shown is the most the policy will pay for injuries to any one person. Second limit is the most policies will pay for all injuries if more than one person is injured in a single accident. Third limit is the most the policy will pay for property damage resulting for a single accident. Experience rating. The insured's past experience with claims helps determine the cost of insurance. Liability limits. $20,000/$40,000/$5,000. What is true regarding coverage for flood and earthquake perils? Both flood and earthquake are excluded perils and all property policies can be purchased W in endorsement. Licensees must inform the Commissioner of a change of address within 30 days of the change. HO forms place a $______ limit for business personal property that applies on premises only. $2,500 limit. A limit of $500 applies to loss of business personal property while away from the premises. Reciprocity. Occurs when the state in which the person resides accords the same privilege to residents of MA. Personal injury is not an additional liability coverage automatically provided in a homeowner's policy. Section 1 of a boat owner's policy covers physical damage. The insuring agreement lists parties to the contract, effective and renewal dates, the description of coverage provided and perils, among other things, required to participate in the insolvency fund. Authorized insurers are required to participate in the fund as a condition of their certificate of authority. Primary policy. The policy that pays first in the event of a covered loss, or in a layered program of insurance, the policy that covers the first layer of loss. Minimum age requirement for an insurance producer in this state: 18 years old. Declarations. The part of a property policy that shows the amount of insurance, premium and policy term. An accurate comparison between private and government insurers. Private insurers may be authorized to transact insurance by state insurance departments. An insurer was just caught misrepresenting the terms of a policy. What fine does he face? A fine of up to $1,000 or imprisonment for up to 6 months. What is the minimum amount of coverage that should be carried on and HO2 on a home that was purchased 4 years ago for $75,000, which today has a replacement value of $100,000? $80,000. General compensatory damages. Compensate for non-monetary aspects of harm suffered, such as pain and suffering. The amount an insurer will pay under coverage D, loss of use, depends on the amount of coverage on the dwelling. Express authority. The authority granted to an agent through the agent's contract, written into the contract between the insurer and the agent. Mobile home endorsement. When an auto that is shown on the declarations page is a mobile home, coverage extends to include certain permanently installed equipment and accessories. The regular National Flood Insurance Program would insure an eligible single-family dwelling for up to $250,000 on a replacement cost basis. Exclusions. Are not found in the declaration section of a policy. Under the HO4 and HO6 homeowner policy forms, property is insured against broad form perils. Larkency. Failure to pay premiums collected to the company after written demands. Larkency. Failure to pay the premiums collected to the company after written demand. Exclusions on a dwelling policy. All homeowner policy exclusions apply to all dwelling policies. Coverage under Part 6, medical payments and auto policies issues in this state is similar to accident insurance, because it provides legal protection if the insured causes injuries to others. Vandalism and malicious mischief. Coverage provided in many property insurance policies that protects property against damage caused by vandals but will not be covered if vacant for more than 60 days immediately prior to the loss. DP2 broad form, stated peril. DP3 special form, open peril. Risks that contain farming exposure are not eligible for homeowners insurance. Coverage F, medical payments, under a homeowner's policy would cover residence employee who is injured on the job. Who is covered by an HO4 policy? Tenants. Eligibility requires that the dwelling have not more than __ residential units. 4. Uninsured motorist coverage applies only when the other party is legally liable but has no insurance. What is the maximum amount that can be charged to the insured for the fire department services? The homeowner's policy will pay up to $500 of the fire department service charge. Declaration section provides information as to who is insured, where they are located, when the policy provides coverage, how much coverage, and the amount of deductible applied to a loss. The Commissioner will serve a notice hearing, the time and place of which cannot be sooner than 21 days after the date such notice was served. What type of information would be found in a policy's insuring agreement? Renewal dates. Location of premises, policy limits, supplemental representations, and insurer's name/address can all be found in the declarations. Unfair trade practices. If an auto repair facility/insurance company fails to disclose whether the parts installed were used, rebuilt, or aftermarket crash parts, girl loses control and crashes into a neighbor's front porch. The neighbor, who was sitting on the porch, is injured. The insured's liability policy has a limit of $500,000. This amount applies to the total of damages for any bodily injury and property damage resulting from one accident. Which type of liability does the insured have? Combined single. MA Financial Responsibility Law requires that the insurance policy provides coverage limits not less than the following: $20,000 on account of injury or death to any one person in a single accident, $40,000 on account of injury or death to two or more persons in a single accident, $5,000 for damage to property of others arising out of a single accident. Casualty. Same as liability. Who would participate in a Write Your Own (WYO) flood insurance program? Private insurers that wish to write and service national flood insurance policies on a no-risk-bearing basis. Personal injury protection coverage will only pay $2,000 in benefits if the insured has medical coverage that will pay some of the medical expenses. If the insured has more expenses after $2,000 PIP and the insurance has paid, the limit will be returned to $8,000. Apparent authority. The appearance or the assumption of authority based on the actions, words, or deeds of the principal or because of circumstances the principal created. How much is covered for debris removal under the whole property additional coverages? All reasonable costs if the debris was caused by a peril that is insured against. The reasonable cost of debris removal is paid by the insurer. Speculative risk. When a person has both the chance of winning or losing. Definitions. The part of the policy that clarifies terms in the policy. Coverage D. Loss of use. Covers losses incurred as a result of your home being uninhabitable. The personal auto policy does not provide coverage outside the United States, its territories, or Canada. Permitted incidental occupancies endorsement. Covers liability exposures arising from an incidental business conducted within a building on the resident's premises. Not a cover auto. A mobile home. If someone is injured exiting a friend's mobile home, this is classified as a premises exposure. How much will the loss assessment additional coverage of the insured's homeowner's liability policy pay? Up to $1,000 per occurrence for the insured's share of loss assessment charged against them as owner or tenant of the resident's premises during the policy period by a corporation or association of property owners, in return for the insured's promise to insure the property to some certain percent of its value. The insurer agrees to give the insured a reduced rate per hundred on the insurance and pay partial losses in full. A participating insurance policy may pay dividends to the policy owner. Fee for a rating organization's license. $25. Dwelling is used. For properties not where the policy owner lives. Used for tenant dwelling is used for property.